Labor's targeting what it says is another John Key flip-flop, this time over his position on the Hobsonville low-cost housing project. The National leader once said he'd cancel the project, but now he says he'd put it in the hands of the private sector because only they can be trusted to develop it properly. Political editor Duncan Garner reports.
Helen Clark always comes to Parliament well prepared and clutching her papers. And today she had an extra spring in her step because of the man her ministers taunt as Mr Flip-Flop, John Key.
Last year, Mr Key described the Hobsonville project as economic vandalism and likely to lead to a big ghetto in his electorate. This morning on Radio New Zealand, he said he agreed with it.
Key's rallied against the government's Hobsonville low-cost housing development in the past, calling it vandalism and saying National would cancel it. But Labor claims he's changed his mind. And was Clark going to let that slip? Get real.
I guess he was just talking to a different audience from the one he tried to whip up in his own electorate.
The Hobsonville project is part of the government's plan to offer low-cost housing. It's expected developer Housing New Zealand will offer 500 houses for sale at around $350,000 each in the years to come. But Key told 3 News that Labor is wrong to accuse him of a flip-flop.
Well, the position is as it has always been, which is I don't agree with Housing New Zealand being the developer of the land at Hobsonville.
Key, who was raised in a state house, says National would dump Housing New Zealand as the developer and bring in the private sector to build and sell the homes.
There's absolutely no doubt that the private sector can go in there, develop a range of housing. Some will be affordable, some will be high-end, but it can be a very, very successful development in West Auckland.
So Key's position on Hobsonville is at its best much weaker than a year ago, and at its worst, Labor can rightly argue that he's flip-flopped. He once said he'd cancel the development. Now he says he'll keep it going, but under the eyes of the private sector. That's gold for Helen Clark. She will exploit that. The mere mention of privatisation usually backfires for National. Duncan Garner, 3 News.